Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving into something absolutely crucial. We're going to explore exactly how a massive nation manages to secure its food supply by literally manipulating the flow of water. We'll start big, looking at staggering national weather systems, and then we're going to zoom all the way down into the microscopic physics of dirt. It's a fascinating story of survival, science, and some serious engineering. Let's get into it.
Let's kick things off with a pretty staggering reality. India actually sustains roughly 16% of the entire world's population. But when you look at the globe's available fresh water, India possesses just 4% of it. Think about that for a second. 16% of the people, but only 4% of the water. That massive demographic imbalance really sets the stage for everything we're going to explore today.
Section 1. The looming water crisis, and why this is quite literally a science of survival.
So this disparity creates a very high-stakes ticking clock. If you track the per capita water availability starting way back in 1951, you see this really sharp plummet. We started at a pretty comfortable 5,300 cubic meters, but then it just plunges. It drops straight through the water-stressed line, and it's heading directly towards severe scarcity levels by the year 2050. It's a steep drop for sure.
Moving right into Section 2, India's giant water budget. Let's take a macro perspective.
To figure out how we survive this drop, we really have to look at the country's macro water budget. Every single year, India receives a mind-boggling 400 million hectare meters of precipitation. That is an enormous amount of water. But here's the catch. It doesn't fall evenly. Not at all. It arrives in these really intense, heavy bursts, primarily driven by the southwest monsoon.
So the crucial question here is, what actually happens when all that water hits the dirt? Well, out of that 400 million, only about 215 million actually percolates down into the ground. The rest of it is incredibly fleeting. You've got 115 million flowing rapidly away as surface runoff, and another 70 million that just evaporates almost immediately. So figuring out how to capture that escaping runoff, that's really the name of the game.
Which brings us to Section 3, the irrigation innovation gap, and how we go about bridging it.
You know, managing this fleeting runoff has actually been a survival priority for literally millennia. And the sheer scale of the human engineering involved is just incredible. I mean, we're talking about starting as far back as 3000 BC with early river dams in the Indus Valley. Then it progresses to the ancient Grand Anicut Dam in the 2nd century, going all the way up to these massive post-independence mega dams like Bakranangal. These are absolutely colossal projects, and they were all designed to drastically increase the amount of irrigated acreage.
But if you look closely, there is a pretty glaring problem staring right back at us. See those diverging lines? Despite building all of this massive infrastructure and creating this huge potential for irrigation, there's still a really massive gap between that potential and the actual area being watered by farmers. It really makes you ask, why build a giant reservoir if the water doesn't even make it to the crops?
To fix this exact gap, the Command Area Development and Water Management Program was launched. Because the real issue was that water was just bleeding out of online canals, or it was being ruined by poor drainage, or totally wasted in uncontrolled wild flooding. So the mission here is structural modernization. It's about ensuring that every single drop actually makes it from the giant reservoir directly to the plant's roots.
Let's shift gears a bit for Section 4, the micro world of soil. We are zooming in on dirt.
All right, so we are leaving the giant concrete megadams behind for a minute, and we're zooming all the way down into the microscopic battlefield of dirt. Because here's the thing, dirt isn't just solid ground. It's actually a super dynamic three-phase system. You've got solid mineral particles, liquid water, and trapped air, all constantly interacting. And together, they essentially create this microscopic reservoir for the crops to drink from.
The real secret to this micro-reservoir is something called porosity. Porosity basically determines exactly how much of that life-saving moisture a given volume of soil can actually store. It's all about the void space between those solid particles. And it is absolutely crucial because without optimal porosity, it honestly doesn't matter how much it rains. The soil simply won't be able to hold on to the water.
This is where the physical health of the soil really matters. Now, particle density is just the weight of the solid minerals themselves. But bulk density, that measures the whole package, the solids plus those empty pore spaces. Think of it kind of like packing a suitcase. When heavy machinery comes in and compresses the soil, its bulk density increases. The suitcase loses all its empty space. And when that happens, it severely limits the soil's capacity to actually hold on to water.
Section 5. How dirt holds water, or really, the actual physics of soil. So you might be wondering, what actually stops a drop of water from just sinking straight down to the center of the earth? Well, it all starts with the physical structure of the soil. The way soil clumps together, whether it's in granular, blocky, prismatic, or platy shapes, completely dictates how the water flows. Granular soil, for example, allows for a nice, moderate percolation. But if you have a platy structure, where the soil is stacked up like dinner plates, it forces the water to detour, and that often causes runoff before the water can even soak in.
Okay, so once the water is finally inside those pores, we encounter the invisible physics that are literally keeping our crops alive against the pull of gravity. It is all about water being incredibly clingy thanks to hydrogen bonds. First, you have adhesion forces, which tightly bind the water molecules directly to the soil surfaces. And then you have cohesion, which allows those water molecules to essentially hold hands and cling to one another. It's a real team effort.
Now, because these hydrogen bonds are so unbelievably strong, they create what's known as soil moisture tension. It's basically a microscopic tug of war. The soil really wants to hold onto the water, which means the plants literally have to exert serious biological force, which we actually measure in bars or PF, just to rip that water away from the dirt. It's wild. If the soil is too dry, the tension is too high, and the plant simply isn't strong enough to drink.
As we wrap up this explainer, we're really left with a pretty fascinating thought. We started this journey by looking at a looming national crisis and these colossal concrete dams, right? But ultimately, could mastering the invisible physics of how water clings to a single microscopic grain of soil be the exact science we need to secure the future of a massive national water budget? It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey from monsoons down to molecules. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.